Her daughter is sweet. Is that right?
We're good. We're still concentrating, but I'm over that.
Hello, good late morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am honored to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Amanda Mortimer. She comes to us having recently completed a 500-mile walk, is that correct, on the Camino de Santiago? She is a professor in psychology, both a clinician and a researcher at Fresno State, California. And I met her a quarter of a century ago when I hired her to be a pre-doctoral intern in psychology at Kaiser Permanente in Fresno. And she impressed us so much, we hired her again as a postdoc. And then we all started learning from her instead of us teaching her, so we hired her as a staff psychologist. She then moved on to be a professor. But we kept in touch because she hired our daughter Sarah to babysit her two beautiful young boys, who are now taller than she is. I probably have many more things I could say after a quarter of a century, but I'm going to turn everything over to Dr. Amanda Mortimer.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the invitation to come talk to you all, and I really appreciate you all staying here for the third slightly intense subject of the day here. So as Mike said, I'm a clinical psychologist, so I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I see patients. In addition to that, I do research, as he said, and I teach students at Fresno State. One of the things that's been a defining experience with my teaching at Fresno State is that I'm very invested in service learning. And with service learning, the idea is you send students out to do helpful things for people in your community while they're learning. The service learning class that I've taught for 15 years is about working with people with varying forms of dementia and end-of-life issues. And so I'm speaking to you from my personal experience working with families of people with dementia, my personal experience diagnosing people with dementia at Kaiser, my experience teaching my students how to work with people, and finally, my experience working with my in-laws, both of whom demented and went through multiple steps of care during the time that I cared for them, from their independent living situation to a more dependent living situation to living with me to living in a more memory care type facility. So I have a lot of different angles on this. And it's a thing that really matters to pretty much all of us here in this room. We used to think that Alzheimer's disease wasn't that frequent, but we're finding out that it's more and more frequent. And so what I want to address today is I want to give you a basic idea of what is Alzheimer's disease anyway, and I was just saying dementia, and how does that interact? And then if you actually go see your doctor, for yourself or for someone you love, they'll be talking about neurocognitive disorder now. There's a lot of different names, and how do those fit together? Then we're going to talk about how Alzheimer's disease specifically impacts your brain and your behavior. So what's going on that changes? And what is it you should be ready for if it's your experience, if it's the experience of those around you that you love? And finally, and this is going to be half of the talk, we're going to talk about how do you interact with people with this going on? Because I want you to leave here with some real nuts and bolts ideas of when this thing is impacting my life, what is it I do? How is it I preserve the relationship with this person I love so much who's becoming a bit of a different person? What is it I do that keeps myself calm and comfortable in the middle of this storm? So that's what we're covering. And I had to put in a joke just for Ashland.
Oh.
Y'all should like smile and make me happy here. I like interactive things.
I was from Fresno too, you know?
Cool. Many cool people in this room came from Fresno. So, with what's in a name, dementia. This is a previous diagnosis. You'll notice I can't con myself to stop talking about it, but it's also something that's not used nearly as much anymore. It's not used in the professional diagnosis. And I remember back when I was in grad school, which has been a while, just to say, I heard a professor talking about working with someone who was demented, this demented patient of mine. And even then, back when I was in grad school, 30 years ago, the response was, ooh, you know, you don't want to say that about somebody. That's not nice. But you don't really exactly think demented equals dementia, but it does, and that's why we changed the name. So, what we call it now, and it is the same thing, is neurocognitive disorder. What's important about neurocognitive disorder is that you've got a decline in how your brain works. So we all have a lot of variation in how our brain works and how well we can learn new things and how well we can solve problems. But with neurocognitive disorder, you're seeing a decline. So if you were someone who was really good at those things, learning new things, solving novel problems, then if you have a neurocognitive disorder, you're becoming much less good at it. If you were someone who wasn't super good at it to begin with, now you're less super good at it. But it's important that it's a decline from where you were. And because it's a decline, that's kind of setting you up for an ongoing decline, which, as I'll point out, is how Alzheimer's disease works. That it's not just that you were here and now you're here, it's that it's ongoing decline that gets more and more and more across time. It's also a substantial impairment in cognitive functioning. So if you happen to be somebody who got a Nobel Prize and were just right at the tippy top of your game, and now it turns out you're not doing Nobel Prize type work and you can't really think at quite that level, but you're doing fine, sorry, you don't have neurocognitive disorder. You have to get to a point where it's interfering with your activities of daily living, where it's really causing trouble with doing the things that we all do in order to have comfortable, happy, safe lives. And what this all boils down to, and I think is really important, if there's one thing to take from this, and hopefully you'll end up taking several, it's that what neurocognitive disorder is, what dementia is your brain is broken. It's a physical impairment of the physical organ that lives here in your head. This is not something where you can be like, oh, it's all in your head, although I'm always kind of amused by that because all mental health concerns are all in your head. If you cut off your head, you will have no mental health concerns. And also, that's where your brain lives. And your brain is super, super involved in everything that's going on. So feel free to blow a raspberry at anybody who says it's all in your head. And at the same time, when I was working with my in-laws, when I was solving problems in my personal life with people with Alzheimer's disease, one of the most important things I could say to myself is, her brain is broken. It's not up to her whether she's kind to me or not. It's not up to her whether she makes sense or not. You know, normally, if somebody doesn't understand us, we try to talk to them until they understand us. Let me describe what's going on. Let me use my words to help you understand. That doesn't work for people with Alzheimer's disease as the disease progresses because their brains are broken. However, you'll notice we're still here on neurocognitive disease. Neurocognitive disorder diagnosis doesn't say why it's broken. It doesn't say what the physical mechanism that's causing impairment in your brain is. It just says, hey, it's broken somehow. So when we go to Alzheimer's disease, we're talking about one specific neurocognitive disorder. Physical changes in the brain. We get protein changes because, you know, it's all made of protein. Beta amyloid protein makes plaques outside of neurons, neurons being the cells that live in your brain, and provide communication both throughout your brain and throughout the rest of your body. Tau protein makes tangles inside of neurons. And the outcome of both of these proteins laying down is that the neurons eventually will be strangled and die. And what I'm showing you here with the pictures is a very dramatic, this is somebody at very end-stage Alzheimer's. This is not what you see with someone when they start forgetting in the beginning, when you're kind of wondering. This is what you see when someone's brain has just degenerated really dramatically. But you actually have brain cell death due to this protein deposition, leading to brains that just don't have that juicy, full look. They get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. Neuronal death. also leads to long-term inflammation, and those two things together lead to an atrophy of brain tissue over time. You can see as it's going there that there's going to be variation in what you see from looking at somebody with Alzheimer's disease as you move slowly. The average amount of time between diagnosis and death with Alzheimer's disease is 12 years. And you add to that that most people do not get diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease particularly early in their Alzheimer's journey. So it takes a long time. You are going to spend a lot of time with this disorder if nothing else interferes and leads you to be finished with the disorder faster. So how common is it? The reason why I'm talking about Alzheimer's disease specifically instead of neurocognitive disorders in general is because it's 60 to 80% of major neurocognitive disorders. It is the most common thing that we see as we age significantly that impairs our brain. The best predictor of Alzheimer's disease is age. So if somebody asks me, how do I not get Alzheimer's disease? The answer is, don't get old. I'm sure you all are doing your best in this regard. And yet, the thing about getting old is it beats the alternative. So there we are. If you look at this data that is from the Alzheimer's Association, 1 in 9 people age 65 and older, so that includes 65 and older all the way up to oldest, 1 in 9 people are going to have Alzheimer's disease. However, it gets much more prevalent as we get older. So 1 in 2 people by age 85. And this is why when Mike asked me to do a talk of general interest to a general group, I thought, in addition to the fact I know quite a lot about it, but I know a lot about other things too, just saying, I thought Alzheimer's disease, because it's so prevalent. It's there in all of our lives. For us, for our loved ones, for our elders, for our in-laws, for our parents, for other people we care about in our community. And one thing that I've mentioned, talking to several people just as we're waiting around to get going here, is it's amazing to me how much we tend to look at dealing with Alzheimer's disease as our own private travesty that we need to deal with. So takeaway number 2 I'd give you from this. Number 1, anybody remember what number 1 was?
Oh no, we can't forget.
It's a broken brain. That's what's going on with Alzheimer's disease. Takeaway number 2 is we're all in this together. We all are going to end up loving people who have Alzheimer's disease. And when it feels like it's just you and you feel like you're alone, whether it's you diagnosed, whether it's your spouse diagnosed, whether it's an elder you love diagnosed, reach out to other people around you, because we all will end up loving somebody with Alzheimer's disease. So, behavioral, what's actually going on with Alzheimer's disease specifically? You end up having 2 or more thinking problems. Cognitive problems, which we frequently say cognitive meaning thinking. The most common is memory impairment. And I'm going to tell you why a little bit in the next slides as we go. But this is almost always the first thing we notice with somebody with Alzheimer's disease, is memory impairment. I'd also like to point out, especially for people who are aging themselves, it turns out that as we age, our brains don't work as fast as they used to. Has anybody noticed this? It just works that way.
I agree with him.
Absolutely. So the thing about them not working as fast as they used to, has anybody ever had something that we refer to technically as the tip of the tongue phenomenon? Like, I know your name, and I know it starts with J, and I'm going to get it in approximately 10 minutes when you're not here anymore. So that is a speed issue. That is not Alzheimer's disease. With Alzheimer's disease, you're not making memories at all. It's not that it's there and you gotta dig for it, and believe me, I personally, having just turned 50, I am digging for it much more often than I used to, and gosh, that's annoying, and gosh, you could be like, my brain isn't working. That's not your brain being broken, that's your brain being a little slow. And the good thing, by the way, that I also like to tell people when I talk to them about how your brain starts slowing down at age 35, sorry, but that's how it is that also you have so many more memories than you had when you were 35. And this has greatly increased your wisdom. You have more to find. It takes you a little longer to dig it out, but you have more to find. Personally, I'm making better life decisions now than I was at age 35, and I hope on reflection, maybe you guys find that you are too. So, cognitive memory impairment, it's a failure to make new memories. It's not that it takes a while to get there. It's not kind of, I'm a little bit nervous about it. It's that you're straight up not making new memories when you need to. You also can end up with language problems. Again, I point out, this is not the tip of the tongue phenomenon, language problems. This is, you're just not getting there. You can end up with movement problems. You can end up with what we call executive function problems. That's stuff like planning, organizing, sequencing, abstracting. My personal opinion from spending a lot of time diagnosing people with Alzheimer's, the most common thing that you typically see is somebody who forgets they're supposed to be going out to lunch. And why is because this is a really complicated prospective memory problem. You have to remember you're going out to lunch, and you have to remember when. Does that mean if you forget you're going out to lunch, you should freak out? Please don't. Most of us do this. If you think about it, my two kids who were like that, now they're like this, and they're 19 and 21. And they forget they're going out to lunch sometimes, and they definitely don't have Alzheimer's yet. So don't freak out about a one-off. What we're looking for is patterns. What we're looking for is ongoing difficulties. We also see that the changes are causing significant difficulties, like I talked about before, and it's important that they aren't due to other causes, such as medications. I got a really good story many years ago that I still remember from Mike about, and sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm all like, is this appropriate to share? But I think it is. Where you had a infection that was underlying at one point, and it caused you to sleep for like 36 hours, and I think you asked after Mike's sister when you woke up and then went right back to sleep, and that was particularly odd for Mike because he doesn't have a sister. And once you've been married for there you go. Once you've been married for a while, you expect that people will notice these things. But no, it turned out that her infection had spread. She was septic. She needed treatment. No, her brain wasn't working. Her brain was broken, but it was broken due to the infection. It was not broken due to proteins laying down, thereby causing neuronal death. So the great thing about that is you get some really good antibiotics on your system, and then you stop having problems. You go back to where you were. So that gives you an idea of what's going on with Alzheimer's disease from a medical perspective. But now I have to go off about memory some because I love memory so much. It's really interesting because from the end user perspective, and all of you are end users of memory. You know, it's there, you've been using it since you were probably about 1.5 years or so, give or take. You can't even make cognitive memories till you're 2, just so you know. But there are a lot of different types of memory, and they're all based on different parts of your brain. From the end user perspective, you're going through life, you're remembering stuff, it feels like it's all the same thing, but it's not. And why that matters is because if specific parts of your brain are getting broken over time, then the specific types of memory linked to those parts are getting broken and not working right, but you have other types linked to other parts of your brain that are still okay. So the type of memory that gets most strongly impaired in Alzheimer's disease is long-term or cognitive memory. It's formed through the hippocampus. I always go, if you go here and then like dig in a little bit, that's where your hippocampus lies. It's my personal all-time favorite brain structure, and it's necessary for creating new long-term memories. It's not where they live, though. It's like the process. The way I think about this is your hippocampus that makes your long-term memories, that's like the little librarian in your head. And she goes, she receives the books in the mail, and then she processes the books. Somebody's got to open up the package, you know, otherwise you just got a pile of packages over there. She opens up the packages with the new books in it and takes those books and shelves them. Where she shelves them is throughout the cortex, all the wrinkly stuff, all over on the top. So if you've got a long-term memory remembering the cat from your childhood named Spot, that is not stored in your hippocampus. It's stored somewhere here and here and here in a distributed way. So when you damage the librarian, she's feeling sick to her stomach. She is not doing her job. She is not processing those books. Those packages are piling up somewhere. She's not getting to it, and so there's no new long-term memories being added. It is important, though, really crucial to understand when we're talking to people with Alzheimer's, the fact that she can't put new things in there doesn't mean that the old things that are stored all through all the wrinkly parts, those old things stored, distributed in cortex, they're still there. Until, as we go down and down and down and down, eventually cortex starts being impacted as well. So we lose hippocampus first. We do lose cortex over time. We lose long-term memory over time, but it really takes a long time. Remember, 12 years from diagnosis to death. Diagnosis, you've already got hippocampus really strongly impacted, and then for a long time, people will remember what happened with that cat in their childhood, but they're not creating new memories of that cute cat that I just saw during the talk, you know? So, testing cognitive memory. This is the part where I promised someone that there is a test. This is a test of your memory, and I'd like you to repeat back to me these words. Face, velvet, church, daisy, red.
Face, velvet, church, daisy, red.
And you will be asked for them later. Let's do it one more time. Face, velvet, let me say it, just so you listen to me saying it, and then you say it. But you guys are absolutely so good at singing in the choir. Face, velvet, church, daisy, red.
Face, velvet, church, daisy, red.
Great. So now we're going to go over some things that change in Alzheimer's disease. Physical things, mental things, emotional things, and social things. And I'm going to blow through these fairly quickly because I really want to spend more time talking about how do we interact with people with Alzheimer's disease. But I want this background of what is it like interacting with somebody before we start talking how. So physical things, we're really likely to see a loss of physical coordination. This really is a problem because as we age, our bones become more fragile, our bodies become more fragile. As you become less coordinated, you're more likely to injure yourself. By the way, everybody, work on your balance. Working on your balance is an amazing thing for really helping you as you continue aging. You get age-related physical changes, so all the things that everybody has, but now you have additional memory-based issues. A big thing, and I think that probably everybody who's dealt with somebody coming down with Alzheimer's disease and living with Alzheimer's disease over time, loss of ability to drive. This one just hits us so hard because driving is our badge of adulthood in this culture. That's how you get from place to place. That's how you are independent. And that's one of the reasons why you all are so clever for living in Ashland, where it's a lot more walkable, you have a lot more flexibility with that. But the reason why you lose your ability to drive is that you end up with a decrease in reaction time. And that doesn't matter too much if you're doing your standard driving along, but it becomes very problematic when a 4-year-old throws a ball in front of your car and runs after it. You also have a decrease in attention and executive function, pretty likely. So executive function is making a good choice with a very, very limited time frame. An example of that is as I was driving down here from Portland, my friend who was driving the car saw in the middle of the very fast highway we were on this great big huge box that was like this tall. And you see that, you don't have a lot of time when you're moving at 75 miles an hour to decide, what do I do about that? Do I go this way? Do I go that way? Do I go through the box? You have to also get other information. You have to figure out where are the other cars, how is there space there for me to go off my lane? See how making this complicated decision, and you got to do it fast, and if you don't, bad things happen. So that is why we end up losing our ability to drive with those losses. You get physical problems that are not due to taking medications correctly. This is a big, big deal, and how to manage your medications really matters as you become an elder with more medications to consider. And as things progress, you can end up with physical problems due to forgetting to eat. Which sounds like, how could you forget to eat? But really, you can. One of the things that happens as you age is you end up with less intensity towards your physical needs. And so it becomes more common that, you're not moving quite as much. You don't feel as physically hungry. And then as you get further and further down the Alzheimer's trend, you can also forget, what should I do about it when I have that physical sensation of hunger? So those are things you can expect. Mental changes, decrease in speech and language, a loss of sense of time. This sounds like, oh, well, why does that matter? That matters because if you wake up at 3 a.m. every day and go start getting ready for the day, that can really impact the other people who live with you, who are kind of hoping to be asleep at that time. So you drift into feeling strong imperatives like, it's time to go to the grocery. Well, it turns out you just went to the grocery an hour ago. But if you feel that super strongly and you need to express that to the people you live with, see how this becomes problematic? Forgetting where they are. The two things that people with Alzheimer's do that causes the most physical damage to them are wandering, walking places. I need to go find X. This is so common with people who have been married for 70 years. I need to go find my wife. She's not here. I don't remember that she died. I don't remember that she's visiting her sister. I don't remember that she's just in the next room. I'm going to go for a walk and find her. Doing that kind of wandering, forgetting what's up. Personally, I'm going to be a terrible wanderer when I have Alzheimer's disease, as in I'll be very good at wandering and very annoying to people in charge of me because I like going walking, and I go walking all the time. It's an overlearned habit. I go out the door and go walking wherever I am usually. And so if my brain is not doing executive function, I'll just be like, hey, let's go for a walk, which works out fine as long as you have a cognitive memory, so you're creating memories of where you turned, but works out very poorly if you don't remember where you went and you don't remember where home is. The other one, by the way, that causes really significant harm is cooking. And that's something, again, it's an overlearned activity. We all have been cooking for us and the people around us for a really long time, and so you have this idea like, oh, it's time to cook. I'm going to go cook at 3 a.m., And so if you're not quite straightened out on that, unfortunately cooking involves heat. Unfortunately, heat can start fires, and that is a really common problem that needs to be addressed if you're hanging around with somebody with cognitive impairment that is related to cognitive memory issues. Lack of ability to learn new skills, lack of ability to manage money. And this can go complicated ways. One of my personal favorite people that I diagnosed with Alzheimer's, she was so smart. She started out as a secretary, and she was working in a business that designed satellites, and she worked her way up and became an engineer in that business across time, and she was a take charge lady who did all the things, and she had a truck with a truck note, and she paid her truck note because she was very responsible. And then she paid her truck note because she was very responsible. And then she paid her truck note because she was very responsible. And you'll notice most of us don't really have the ability to pay that 3 times a month on the regular. And so the lack of ability to manage money, it can be forgetting to do it at all. It can also be doing it too much, but in ways that don't organize the way they should. Emotional changes, and these are super important when we're thinking about how to interact with our people with Alzheimer's disease. Increased anger, irritability, combativeness. So again, I'd like to point out that when I develop Alzheimer's disease, I'm going to be a real pain. Because I'm a go-to person. I want to think about things. I want to sort things out. I want to figure it out. I want to be in charge. And all of those things set you up for arguing with other people who understand things, but I understand things. I know what's going on in my life. I'm going to tell people what to do, and they're going to do it. I've been like that my whole adult life, and I doubt I'll stop being like that because I have Alzheimer's disease. It's also important to note that while some people with Alzheimer's disease will be knowledgeable about the fact they have Alzheimer's disease, approximately 7 out of 10 pretty much straight up deny it. So, you know, I might be one of that 3 out of 10 who's like, I have Alzheimer's disease. My father-in-law, what he would say is, they tell me I have Alzheimer's disease. And I think that's who I'm going to be, like, show me the data. And then they'll show me the data, and because my librarian has taken the day off, I won't remember, and then I still won't believe it, even though I saw the data. So, just to warn you, this goes back to thing number 1 you're supposed to remember. What was thing number 1? Their brain is broken. This increased anger, irritability, and combativeness. This is not that your beloved person decided they want to be mean to you. This is someone whose brain is broken in a way where they can't monitor their behavior. And that doesn't make it less obnoxious and infuriating, just to say. But what it does do, I so strongly encourage you. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, don't compare elders to children. Personally, I think it's kind of insulting to say it's insulting to compare elders to children. That's kind of insulting to children because children are people too. All of our people are our people and should be treated with love, kindness, and respect that is due to our people. But if you're somebody whose executive function doesn't work and you're irritated, that puts you in kind of the same situation as a 2-year-old who they know they want those M&Ms. And see, dude was bringing it. He was pointing out they want those M&Ms. They're not wanting to have a discussion about it. They're not champagne, they're M&Ms. They just want those M&Ms, and it's so irritating when they can't get them. So you can see where if your brain is not bringing the full scale capacity that it has at the high water of its abilities, then you get really irritated because you think you should be able to control the world, but you can't. So there we are, broken brains, they're being irritating. We have to adapt to deal with that. We have to bring the kindness. Quick emotional shifts. That happens a whole lot. And it's because you can't explain things. So if somebody walked by here and stuck me with a pin, I'd be annoyed. I'd be super annoyed for approximately that long. And then I'd be like, I'm in front of all these people and they're video recording me, and I don't have the time or opportunity to scream at them and be like, why did you do that? You know, I gotta get to work. But that is executive function. That's reallocating my attention from getting stuck with a pin to, I'm on track, I need to stay on track. If you don't have the executive function to change what you're doing like that, then you just go into whatever's happening, and then I start cursing at the person who struck me with a pin, and then everybody who invited me to come talk is super embarrassed about the fact that that's what they got out of it, you know? So quick emotional shifts, being very responsive to anything that's uncomfortable or anything that's annoying or anything that's scary, and then going into that and staying there for a while until something else comes back. Loss of patience. To be patient, you have to remember that you're doing this for a reason and that things will be different at some point. I think this really connects into the lessons we were considering earlier. If we want change, we need to be patient. To be patient, we need to recall that there's a reason why we're going to protest. There's a reason why we're doing the things we do. But it's not right in front of us. We're waiting and we're remembering. And if your brain's broken so you can't remember, it's very hard to change what you're doing right now to serve a long-term purpose. And finally, personality changes, losing interest, getting less inhibited. That also is something that I kind of fear for myself. Many people are inherently sweet, loving, generous people. I'm unclear that I'm one of them. I put a lot of work into being a nice, generous, loving person, but also I sometimes have to stop myself when I'm not being and ask myself if that's what I want to be. And as we lose cognitive capacity, we lose the ability to self-monitor like that. And just whatever it is that's in there naturally comes out. And for some people, that can be really sweet and loving. My favorite demonstration of that is with my father-in-law, who was a very stern and just kind of dour gentleman throughout most of his life. And he became incredibly loving when he demented. Like, he just really was like this really sweet, loving guy who kind of spent his time telling himself that a man of his age, he was born in 1920. I think like saying I love you wasn't really like on his radar at that point. But then he forgot that he wasn't somebody who didn't say I love you, so he kind of said it a lot more. It can really go in your favor, but it also can go against you if this is somebody who is consistently trying to be kinder than their immediate impulses are. You also get some social changes, self-isolation. It's really hard when they tell you that you have Alzheimer's disease. It just really feels like you are all by yourself. It feels like other people don't want you around, and unfortunately there's a lot of truth to that. People worry that it's catching. People treat you like it's catching. And it's not. You know, you can talk to people and hang out with them. The thing that I really found as an educated psychologist with specialized knowledge in this, it turns out that if your person has Alzheimer's disease, you still should ask them what they want to eat for dinner, because they might have some opinions. They still need to have their opinions on the things that can change, the things that can be okay. But that isolation, it's easy to say in your head, oh, this person doesn't think right, therefore I'm not ever going to ask them things, I'm going to make all the decisions for them. Don't do that. Make some of the decisions for them, things that they can't safely make that decision. In general, it's a very bad idea to wait for people with Alzheimer's disease to decide that they're unsafe driving their cars. They usually don't do that. Even if they run their cars into multiple things and have really bad outcomes, they're still not going to make that decision. You kind of have to make that decision for them. But what are you eating for dinner? What do you want to do this weekend? Things like that. Absolutely involve them in that. Paranoia. And this one kind of freaks people out because it can feel like, oh, that's an all in your head problem. That's a mental health problem. But it's not. It's your broken brain trying to solve what's going on here when I don't remember what's going on here. The kind of like, oh, that's so sad, but also so funny one example I have from a patient I was diagnosing is a couple that came to me because the guy was very concerned that his wife was cheating, and so he wanted to be in couples therapy. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. I mean, at Kaiser, I would see whoever walked through the door. That's what my job was. And so we're doing that, but then we kind of like, okay, you talk to each person individually to find out what's going on that they're not telling you. And as soon as he was outside, she's telling me, so what's happening here is he just really doesn't remember anything at all. And what he's getting really excited about is he thinks there are new clothes in his closet. And when he started losing it about the new clothes in his closet, he came to the conclusion that what was happening was I was having an affair, and the affair partner heard him coming and ran away, hopped out the window and ran away, and the clothes in his closet were left from the affair partner. He didn't have a cognitive memory that was very good, and it turns out the clothes were from Christmas. And it turned out, once I knew that and could kind of ask, then he could kind of roll that out, and you know, it makes sense you're paranoid. If somebody's sneaking into your house and putting clothes in your closet, I mean, we're just talking about the Stasi. You think they're out to get you, you know? It's weird. It makes sense that it feels differently if you don't remember things that everyone else thinks you should remember. And it makes sense that you feel gaslit if they're like, oh, they're just from Christmas. And you're like, really? Being rejected by others. And this, I think, is especially a problem and especially something we have to work on as a community, and particularly a community of elders. Because remember, over 85, that's going to be half of us. That's how that is. We don't have the space to reject people like that. We don't want to be rejected when we're in that half. And when we face up to it, we all get a death, we all have brains, brains all go through what they go through, then it's easy to see that we really need to overcome our own fear of interacting with people with scary things going on. So what memories are left during Alzheimer's disease? Older cognitive memories, but not recent ones, more are lost over time. Associative memories, nice things happen when this person's around. Associative stuff lives about here, so is more striatal. So they can end up remembering. I'd send my students out to talk to the elders, and they wouldn't learn the name of the student, but the student walks in the door, and the person just smiles. This is the person who visits me every week. This is the person that I have a great time with. Don't remember their name, don't remember when I saw them, don't remember what we do, but I remember that I'm happy. That person makes me happy, and that stays pretty much most of the way through Alzheimer's. Emotional memory, I love this person. That stays through Alzheimer's. Procedural memory, where the bathroom is, how to knit, how to fold towels. Again, it goes down, goes down. You lose some of that at the very end, but that lives back here in cerebellum in the part that looks like a cauliflower, and that is protected towards the end. So there's a lot of procedural things people can do. Buy them some yarn if knitting was their thing previously. And finally, sensory memory, the music that I love. That lives in sensory cortex, which is kind of like there, depending on which sense, it's kind of in different places. So, what do you remember? Spoil it for me, shout it out. Face. Velvet. Yay! You all passed. Isn't that great? If you forgot one, don't worry about it, because the other thing that really gets in the way of making memories is anxiety. And this was one of the most common things I would diagnose people with when they came to me at Kaiser, is once you start wondering if you're not making memories right, then you notice all the times you don't make memories, and it turns out that the standard human condition is we don't remember much of what goes on. If they interview you after you walk out here, I'll talk for an hour and a half, you'll remember 5 minutes. And so will every single person in here, regardless of their hippocampal capacity. Like, we filter most of it out. So if you didn't remember one, that's fine. At the same time, when I do this and people are down a fair number, that tells me I should do a more intense memory test on them. So that gets us to the interaction part. Why are we doing this? Because, wow, there are a lot of people with Alzheimer's, and wow, there are a lot of unpaid caregivers who are largely family members who love people and want to be kind to them. So what do you do to do this right? You engage with them and you distract them. Bring connection to your interactions with them. Talk about then, not now. Talk about yes, not no. Play music from the good times. Think yes, and to whatever they tell you that's not right. Quit arguing, keep caring. So for bringing connection, initiate, smile, touch. We're built to live in community. I've known like 2 people in my entire time being a psychologist that really would have been better off living all on their own in a little ivory tower. The rest of us, we're grumpy at times, but we're built for community, and we feel safe, particularly if we're feeling injured or hurt. We feel safe if we know somebody else is watching to keep the lions away. Make them know that you're there by talking to them, smiling them, touching them, interacting with them. Bear in mind that typically when we have social interactions, when I was meeting everybody beforehand, you say a thing, then I say a thing, we're both smiling, then you say a thing, it's a tennis match. Notice that, all you tennis people out there? They aren't so good at playing tennis. You gotta just kind of keep lobbing your balls at them without depending on them coming back. You're providing the social connection for the 2 people. And often, I mean, they'll smile. Often there will be positive responses. Sometimes they'll hit one back, and that's great. But don't penalize them if they don't hit it back. Just send another one. Bring connection. Talk about then, not now. They're not making new memories super well. And remember, like from here to here, like they're making some here and some there. I'm not saying like no new memories ever, but at the same time, they're making fewer and fewer and fewer. Don't ask, how was breakfast? I mean, think about how much basic chit-chat we make. We feel like it's polite to talk about what's going on with you right now. We feel like asking about your past is kind of intrusive and weird, you know? Don't ask, how's breakfast? What do you think of the weather? How have you been feeling? Because what those things do, they make somebody who doesn't make new memories very well feel like you would feel if I made you come up to the whiteboard and start doing math. You know, I might not get this right. I don't know what the right answer is. And then they come up with something, but they're anxious, they're scared, they're worried. What we're doing is we're getting the emotions in the right place. We want the emotions to be happy, calm, peaceful, feeling loved. That's the truth that matters to people with Alzheimer's. The truth isn't the correct numbers, and now you know what year it is, and you actually had sausages for breakfast, and you need to remember that. That's not their truth. The truth is this moment, here, mindful in the love of the person in front of them. So help them get there by asking them older memories. Do ask them. Tell me about your kids. This is something that shocks my students, but I think you all would probably get on board with it. What about if their kids had a horrible, terrible life? What about if their kid is dead? All of us that have kids, and again, there's always 2 or 3 people who are over there, just to let you know, I see you, whoever you are. Most of us that have had kids, when our kids have horrible experiences, we still love our kids. We still want to talk about them. And when your kid has a horrible experience, nobody asks, and that's really sad. When people ask, then, and you're not really making great sense, you talk about the things you remember that you love. And even when there are sad memories, sitting with the sad memory of the child you love or you loved, that's a good place to be, because we love our children. Tell me about your spouse. Same deal. Even if they got divorced and got kind of irritated about it, it's fun talking about why you fell in love. You know? What was the thing that happened there? How did that go? Where did you go to school? Tell me about your 5th grade. Well, I don't really remember 5th grade, but you know this thing happened in 7th grade. See how all of those memories are there, and think about how much we love to tell stories. You're inviting them to tell you a bedtime story. It's like having a little kid that cuddles up, has your attention on them as you're reading them a story they've heard 6 times, so it feels safe. You're not asking them about something they don't know, you're asking them about something they do, and you're shining attention and warmth and care on them. It makes a much better place to be. Talk about yes, not no. Don't tell people what not to do. This is good in general. This also will feature like really a lot if you read on ways to help small children have behaviors that you like. Telling people not to do something is like me telling you don't think about polar bears. Guess what everybody's thinking about now? Oh. Don't tell people what not to do. Don't get up. Don't put away the dishes, because remember the last time when you fell over and you broke your hip? You don't get to put away the dishes anymore. They're not going to remember that, and then they feel bad, and thinking about breaking your hip sucks. See how all of this is emotionally driving us to a terrible place? And it's coming from this love of, don't do that because you're going to hurt yourself. But you're taking this person somewhere bad. Don't open the garage door. That one was there because of a family that I worked with, that the patient would get up and play with the garage door opener at 3 a.m. And it bugged everybody, including the neighbors. And I was like, have you tried hiding the garage door opener? And they're like, no. And I'm like, try that. I mean, really, you just changed the world so that it's safer for this person. You don't ask them to remember anything, you change the world around them. You offer them doable alternatives for the person who's putting away the dishes. One of the biggest things I did with my father-in-law, we ate so much applesauce. And that's why you've got a picture here of the dude with the knife. It seems counterintuitive to hand a knife over to a guy with Alzheimer's, but he was doing fine. He had peeled a lot of apples in his life. He was really good at peeling apples, and also he'd slowed down, so it took him a long time, but he could sit there at the kitchen table and peel apples for 2 hours, and then the little kids at this point, little kids here, little boys, they'd be so happy they had applesauce, and they'd give their grandpa big hugs, and it's just a win all the way around. It's asking him for something he can give, because we all want to contribute, and that's really important. So look for yeses, not nos. Ask people to fold towels. You can sit down and you can fold towels. And then I can take that basket of towels out and I can like mix them all up and bring them back and like, thank you so much. Here's some towels. Could you fold them? Contribution makes people happy. Change the physical world. Hide the garage door opener. Take the knobs off the stove. Like a lot of the stoves, you just pull the knobs off. Now you can't cook. You just made one of the 2 most dangerous things not dangerous anymore. I mean, the person will be kind of annoyed when they're over there looking at the stove and they can't start it up, but they're not going to hurt themselves, they're not going to hurt anybody else, and then they'll get distracted and do something else. Music from the good times. This lives in different brain regions. It doesn't live in where hippocampus is. It doesn't even live where the cat from your childhood lives. It lives back here in sensory cortex. Sensory cortex tends to be super late to dement. Super late to go away. And it's deeply entwined with emotional memory. So it's old songs from the younger years. It's the songs that matter to them. The things that were popular when they were a young adult specifically, or a teenager, the things that they learned to play, the things that they care about. It is amazing how when you whip out your iPhone and you start playing stuff off YouTube that's in the right era, somebody who's way down here will be very responsive, and it will drive happy emotion. That's a great way to make a big emotional shift quickly. Sing, dance, do things with music. Yes, and. This is arguably the most important one, and while I didn't talk fast enough, but here we are, but I'm still gonna make you do it. Join in their world. Improv comedy is where we got this, and this isn't me, this is the world of psychologists helping folks working with their people with Alzheimer's. But the idea with improv comedy is somebody says something, it's sunny shiny out there today, and then somebody has to say something else. Yes, and I hope it won't rain because I want to plant my bulbs. Yes, and I would actually rather go dancing than plant bulbs. Yes, and I like it better when we go to the place with the polka band. Yes, and see how it goes weird places. But the good thing about it going weird places is it doesn't have to go where they're going. So you've got somebody who's like, I want to go to the grocery store, we need peanut butter. Well, you have a month's supply of peanut butter in there, you're tired of it. Then you say, yes, and by the way, let's go peel some apples. See, you didn't say no, you didn't say we're not going to, you didn't say we have 2 tons of peanut butter, you said yes, and you just, and if they catch you doing it, that means they're enough on the ball that you could be like, well, you know, I was trying to sneak one by you, ha ha ha. And it's kind of funny. Most of the time, they're not going to be. And you know your audience. Improv comedians have to know their audience. But you know your audience. You know they're not probably going to catch me. Then switch it up. Make it go to something happy. Make it go to, where did you go to school? Make it go to something that will fit with them. So the idea with improv comedy, collaborate, listen, build a shared world. So I want all of you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to alternate sentences, like I was doing sentence, and then the next person is yes and then the next person is yes and, about Christmas. Go. Gotta hurry up, I didn't leave enough time.
So, are you making yes? She knows she shouldn't
Okay, let's come back together. I'm sorry I don't have more time to leave you doing that, and I'm sorry I don't have time to pester the people who are sitting on their own, but I encourage you, do this with other people in your life later today. It is absolutely hilarious, and it gets you going in the right direction. There's so many smiles on people's faces. Doesn't it just cheer you up? Yes, and. And remember that you can be amused yourself, and your Alzheimer's person, they don't get what you're amused by or why you're enjoying it, but they will catch the laughter. They will catch the joy. Entertain yourself, and you'll be giving them the gift of your happiness. So, you know, make it a little crazy, and it'll work out great. Quit arguing, keep caring. Their brain is broken. You just want to hold on to that. Commit to expressing your caring first and frequently. Don't wait for them to say, I love you. You knew they loved you. They've been telling you that for the last 40 years. You know that they love you with everything they have. It just turns out they might not have the parts anymore to say it first. But you know that. So you can be the person saying, I love you first. You can be the person driving that positive emotion. Get over needing to be right. I personally will never get over this, and this is why I'm going to be a really obnoxious person with Alzheimer's. But what I can do is take my need to be right to my loving friends and my doting sons, and they will listen to me go on and whine. And I don't have to convince my person with Alzheimer's that I'm right. I don't have to change their mind. I can just say, yes, and let's have a nice evening. Yes, and I'm happy you're here. Get over needing agreement. It's not unfair or unkind to not give them choices that they don't have the physical capacity to make safely for themselves. Don't give them choices. Do you want to give up your driver's license? Nobody but anybody is ever going to want to give up their driver's license. Don't ask them. If they're at a place where you are worried that it is dangerous, report to the DMV, let the DMV sort it out, Report to their doctor, ask their doctor what to do about that. But don't give them choices that they are not equipped or safe to make. And base your interactions always on shared positive emotion. If you don't have shared positive emotion, find somebody else to help with them and get away. And I know how hard that is. I mean, I lived with 2 elders in my house for quite a while there, and I had big buggy eyes and was kind of crazy because that's how that makes you. At the same time, if it's too much, get away, have somebody else who's in a place to be kind there, and give yourself some space. So, in total here, what I want to encourage you, engage with your people, distract them. You don't need to explain why what they're thinking is wrong. That's not going to help them, it's not going to help you. Just be there, be present, be kind, bring connection, touch them, smile at them, talk about them, talk about stuff that they do remember from their childhood, from their young adulthood, stuff they cared about. Talk about yes, not no. Don't ask them why they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. Don't tell them not to do things. Tell them what you want them to do instead. Come at it with a yes. Play music from good times. Use yes and to do a complete distraction. Just complete, it doesn't actually have to have anything to do with what they said. Say yes, and let's talk about those roller skates you had when you were a kid. And quit arguing and keep caring. So that's what I've got for you.
A question.
Absolutely.
I'm always inclined to ask questions
I like that.
as a way to explore and get something going. But some of the things you said just now indicated maybe asking, you got to know what the right question is because some
Yes.
are the wrong questions.
Absolutely. So the thing here is you've got to remember, and remember I'm not insulting somebody when I draw a connection with a child. It's just that we're kind of built to understand. You don't want to ask a 3-year-old, do you think it's a good idea to have a Snickers before bedtime? See how that's not going to work out super well? Yeah, unless you're planning on giving them a Snickers before bedtime. You don't want to set yourself up for reminding them of something they can't have or asking them to do something they can't do. And this takes effort because these people we love, they're our parents, they're our spouse. They are people that we have known for decades as highly competent, highly adult capable individuals. And it takes a complete shift in how you deal with them. And it's worth doing the effort to do that shift because it's kind to them.
What if I asked the question, why did you do that?
Ooh, that's really bad because they won't have the slightest idea. Again, remember, we're talking about a large variety of people, so maybe somebody would have an idea. But in general, if somebody is doing something kind of off the wall, it's because their executive function doesn't work correctly, and they're probably not going to say that, which is the truth. They're probably going to say, well, because I'm worried about what Mary will think, and you're all like, Mary died 20 years ago, and it doesn't get you any useful information.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, I work with a guy who used to be my friend. Now I'm more his caretaker. We go to the gym twice a week because he can't remember where he parked. Now, one of the problems I have is having conversations with him because he never initiates. I have to initiate. I know you sort of covered that that as dementia progresses, initiation kind of declines as well. What can you say? What can you suggest about how to have conversations with him?
So something I'll tell you about that, the question is, how do you have conversations with people who used to initiate conversations and now they don't because their Alzheimer's is advancing? this is going to sound really like I'm making fun, but believe me, I'm not, but it also is kind of funny. They won't remember anyway, so you can use the same thing over and over and over, right?
Yeah.
It's a great example of how we want our social communication to stay the same as it was with this person we've loved for decades. But now that, what was number one?
The brain is broken.
Their brain is broken. Now their brain is broken. They can't do the same type
Well,
of social communication
I
they did.
can't carry on both sides of the conversation.
Well, sure. If you think about being groomed by a medical assistant when you go in to get your blood pressure checked,
Yeah.
think about that person. They're always cheerful. It's their job, you know? They're cheerful and they're like, so how are you doing?
Yeah.
Nice to see you here.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, medical assistants have bad days for sure. But they aren't mostly letting you know because it's not your place to sort out their bad days. And then medical assistants go home and call their bestie and are like, could you believe they overscheduled me this much, you know? So keep your besties so you can go home and express things like that too. But when you're working with somebody whose brain is broken, that just cannot, it really is a fine thing to be the person driving it. And the reason why I had all of those things about talking about the past is that's usually the best way to get somebody interacting if you don't want to carry the whole thing yourself. And carrying the whole thing yourself is fine as long as you're touching them occasionally, smiling at them, you know, that kind of thing. So you're keeping them involved. Also, once people get totally, completely past talking, I frequently have my students go and read books. I had one student who read all of Don Quixote to somebody in a semester. And it's not that that person with really advanced Alzheimer's here was into Don Quixote, but the sound of the voice and sitting there holding hands while you read, that makes someone else hear, and then you don't worry about the wolves. When you're that person who can't even understand words, it's so soothing and loving to have someone there paying attention, caring, sounding like a human being that's keeping the wolves away.
Yeah.
How important is it for someone who you suspect may have cognitive decline to get diagnosed with a specific, like Alzheimer's?
So that is a complicated question, and multiple people have multiple answers to that. We keep working on trying to have a more biological diagnosis, and we're like, oh, we'll draw your CSF, and then we can see how much tau protein's in there, and that'll tell us something. We had this really great study just like years and years ago where a whole bunch of nuns donated their brains to science. Anybody hear about this study? It's super cool because just like this big cross-section of women who have had very, very different lives. And what they had to do when they joined the society that they were nuns with is they had to write their personal history down. And this study did an analysis comparing the first line of their personal histories with what was going on with their brains with how much cognitive dysfunction did they have. Which sounds kind of complicated, but it'll all come together in just a minute here. What they found was, if you're a person who writes complicated stories, if you're a person who's not really super, super smart, but maybe is a wonderful person anyway, you'll probably write, you know, I was born in Ashland. Very simple. If you're a person who's a really complex intellectual kind of person, you'll probably think about writing something like, when I was born in Ashland in 1975, there was a big labor dispute going on and a bunch of people were busy moving to Portland. See how that gets complicated? Also, I made that up. There probably wasn't. So that's a surrogate marker for how smart are you. And then looked at the brains, how much of the neuronal decay was seen, how badly off were the brains, and then looked at cognitive impairment, what was noted when the person was alive. And what they found is if you're super smart, then wow, you can lose a ton of neurons and still be kind of cognitively okay. But if you're somebody who's not super smart, then as your neurons are dying, you go down more quickly. So the word for that is cognitive reserve, that if you have more cognitive reserve, you're in a better place. And all of this is a complicated thing, backing up the idea that it depends on what sort of things you're seeing, because what we want to do is keep people safe. There are medications that have passed the FDA to address Alzheimer's disease. They don't tend to be super good. The evidence is not impressive. So it really isn't you can take medication and definitely not get better, but even shelving it off and making it stay where it is, not very good. So in general, the reason why you want to know if you are at a diagnosis level is because you're getting to a point where you'd be dangerous to yourself or others. The other reason why you'd want to know is if you're me, because I obsessively want to know that kind of thing, because I have control issues. And a third reason why you might want to know is because you want to put your affairs in order. The farther down you get, the more you're forgetting, the worse your executive function is, the less positioned you are to make good financial choices for setting up your inheritance plans, the less positioned you are. Personally, I want to go everywhere. I'm not going to be going everywhere if I'm dementing. The sooner I know that, the more I can be like, okay, I'm going everywhere really fast, you know? You can do the things that you care about and get your life in order more. So those are the main reasons. The other thing that I skipped over here, that I put in here just because I thought it's really important for us, is what are the best practices for reducing Alzheimer's disease risk? And why this is important is I'm kind of ruling out the diagnosis matters for being able to reduce your risk well, but that doesn't mean that everyone in this room can't reduce our risk. It just means that it isn't coming in a pill bottle. The best thing you can do to reduce your Alzheimer's disease risk is ongoing physical exercise. That's the absolute #1 best thing. Heart health stuff. Control your blood pressure. If you have diabetes, control your diabetes. Anything that will cause you heart health problems, because then your heart, having heart health problems like, I don't like my job. And if your heart doesn't like its job, it's not pumping hard. If it's not pumping hard, it's not sending oxygen up to your brain. Not having oxygen to your brain is really a big problem. And the more anoxic events you have, the more difficulty you have getting oxygen to your brain, the greater your Alzheimer's disease risk is. Also, sleep apnea. If you stop breathing in the middle of the night, this is a big deal. Get a machine. They are really improving the state of the art. The machines are getting better and better and better. If somebody tells you you stop breathing in the middle of the night and then you go and start over, go see your doctor, get a machine. Because with that all, what's ending up happening is you're having anoxic events every night. You're starving your brain of oxygen. So that's a huge one. Treat that. And also it reduces your stroke risk, and strokes aren't fun either. So ongoing physical exercise, ongoing social relationships. Join a church. Be really interactive with your church. Talk to people, interact with people. I mean, people always want to be like doing crossword puzzles. I mean, doing crossword puzzles is okay, it's not a bad thing. But think about interacting with people in your society. It takes a lot more brain power. Like, what do I do to play that social game of tennis correctly? You know, that takes a lot more than any crossword puzzle. And also, feeling loved reduces your blood pressure. Feeling like you have a community around you in uncertain times really makes you feel physically better. If you're physically better, then you're less inflamed, then you're doing less bad things to your body as you age. So staying in community, treat your clinical depression. If you have clinical depression, there are so many things we can do to treat it. And hey, the youngs these days, they're all talking about going to therapy and they're proud of themselves. So, you know, stay young, join on the bandwagon there. We can treat clinical depression effectively, and it makes a big difference. You start building new neurons in your hippocampus if you treat your clinical depression, as opposed to you're not if you're clinically depressed. Maintain your heart health, get adequate sleep, don't smoke, limit alcohol, and my personal favorite, and I'd like to point out just in case anybody's feeling picked on, I personally had a head injury, but also try not to. It's not any fun, and it's bad for your Alzheimer's prediction. That was a longer thing than you were aiming for. Any other questions?
I had one comment.
Care for,
I'll get back to you.
okay, people who care for Alzheimer's patients, they are made to go for an evaluation.
Not that I know of. So it's kind of like having a baby. You know, if you have your own personal baby, they check and make sure that you have a car seat before you take it away in a car. If you, on the other hand, decide that you are going to adopt a baby, they come do a home study and like judge you if you have too much stuff laying around your house. So like if you're doing it yourself at home, there's much less oversight and regulation. And the same is true of if you have somebody who is moving into a care facility, the care facility will receive regular checkups, and people who are licensed need to renew their licenses and all of those things. But if you are providing care in your own home, as far as I know, as someone in California, you know, everybody hopes for the best, but nobody's going to be sending you off to the doctor yourself.
Does Alzheimer's affect people who are around them all day?
It absolutely does not from a catching perspective. What it does do, and actually I was reading an interesting article on that recently about people who were coming from Ukraine and then providing ongoing care. I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it's somewhere in Western Europe, but providing care in a non-regulated way where it's just like they kind of move in and live with somebody, and then this is your job for the next 3 years. You keep taking care of this person so you have money to send back. That actually does really affect your health. I'd also point out, if this is your spouse and you love them to death and you've been with them for 50 years, and now you're living with them and taking care of them 24/7 for 3 years, it definitely will affect your health, because we are not built to live under stress and 24-hour call. You know, I mean, it's like we get upset if our physicians have to work too long taking call because they make bad decisions because they get woken up. A lot of times Alzheimer's patients are going to wake you up in the middle of the night.
Right.
You're not going to sleep well, you're going to be scared, you're going to be nervous. You need time off to be a good care provider. So it doesn't hurt you, as in you're definitely not going to catch Alzheimer's, it's non-transmissible, so there's that. But what does hurt you is the same thing that would hurt if you were caregiving for anyone else with really significant issues and you never got time off. Think how unfair that would be if somebody was working at a care facility and you're like, okay, this is your patient, you got him, 3 years, it's all you. That's going to be terrible. And of course it's even worse if it's someone you love, that you're dealing with emotional upset with that too. So the thing that I strongly recommend with that is reach out to other caregivers with support groups, prioritize your self-care, seek out helping resources. And this is going to be not a famous thing to say, but it is absolutely my strong opinion and the strong opinion of many other professionals in this area. People try too hard to keep their people with Alzheimer's at home. I am stealing this from one of the wisest neuropsychologists I know, that your primary job with someone in your family with Alzheimer's is to be someone in their family with Alzheimer's. If this is your spouse, your primary job is to be their spouse. If this is your parent, your primary job is to be their child. And being a caregiver is a job. And if you're doing both those jobs at the same time, it turns out that being a caregiver gets in the way of maintaining a family relationship if being a caregiver is overwhelming and too much. And that starts destroying your family relationship. And that really is a problem, because especially those of us that are called to provide care, we're stubborn. And we're just going to keep doing that. And we keep doing that until it's ready to make us explode. And by that point, that's not a great time to be, okay, let's seek alternate care plans. If you can do that while you're not ready to explode, think how much more you have to give. You find a placement for the person that's 2 miles away, and then you're over there every day being their spouse, but not being the person who has to provide their medical and their custodial care. Of course, there are huge financial ramifications to this. There are lots of difficulties, but we simply aren't physically prepared to care for someone, remember, 12 years from diagnosis to death. We aren't physically capable of being the only person caring for someone for that length of time. And if you wait till you're desperate, if you're someone who loves this person, it's going to be really hard on them and hard on you. And also you'll be so burnt out, you just won't be able to show up for them as much as you'd like to once that transition is made. I'm sorry, I think.
I just want to thank you for a very good presentation.
Oh, thank you so much.
As a physician, I really
Okay, I've got one more question in the back, and then you all have been super patient because I've kept you here way too long. So one more question in the back, and then I'll set you free.
I'll try and make this fast. It relates to your previous slide, actually. I've got a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia in my family. Years ago, my primary care physician suggested I buy a book called The End of Alzheimer's, written by UCLA professor Dale Bredesen. And so much of what was in your previous slide is contained in this book, as well as diet, sleep, lots of different things. But it's a program to prevent and reverse cognitive decline. So my question is that a stretch?
Yes.
Reversing?
Yes, it is a stretch.
Okay.
I hate to be like that, and I haven't reviewed that particular job, and UCLA is generally a site of good information.
Yeah.
But reversing Alzheimer's disease is not a thing. And it's really important that everybody know that. Because if you think it's a thing, then you tend to be inclined to trying to get yourself and other people to do things, to pay money for supplements, to sign on to things that will take your time and your money that could be better spent enjoying the time that you have. I do think lots of physical activity, all these things are very helpful. If you do them before you start having cognitive decline, basically what you're doing, everybody's going to get Alzheimer's eventually if you live long enough. My personal hope with all the exercise I'm doing is that I will manage to push it off to 120, so then I will die of a stroke at 110, and I'd dement if I stuck around longer, but I didn't. So that's kind of the goal, is you're pushing Alzheimer's further down the line when you do good health activities. But once you actually have the neurons starting to die, it's a lot to expect them to come back. And we don't really have any good science that shows that that's a doable thing at this point. Thank you guys all so much. You were very patient.